and higher unemployment. So these are the data comparing the year of taking office and all other years. And the GDP is about the same. It's a difference of 1%. And the inflation definitely is lower compared with other years. And for unemployment, it is higher than other years. But it's high, particularly for two leaders, under Deng and under Hu Jintao. And next, we look at the data connecting GDP, inflation, and unemployment with 6 party congresses. The relationship can probably be better demonstrated using a graph. So the graph has the same information as the table, but it's more transparent than the data table in terms of the trend. So we can see that inflation tend to be persistent for a while once it got into place. And unemployment has been on the rise in China, gradually, slowly, based on the government data. And the growth actually tend to be fluctuating. So the numbers here are the averages for the party congresses. So for the 11th Congress, we have a low average economic growth, followed by a high average economic growth, which is followed by another low growth, which is followed by a high growth, another low growth. So you have this wave-like pattern for economic growth, indexed by GDP per capita growth, under the 5 party congresses. And this paper did not particularly look into this pattern per se. If you're interested, maybe you can look further and find out the underlying factors that support the fluctuation of GDP growth under the 5 Congress. Here, my central interest is really the connection of the 3 variables of the economy and the cycle of the party Congress. Following the practice by Alicina in his work on empirical study of political business cycles, I compare the data of the year in which the party convened its Congress and all the rest of the years. Then for GDP, well, it tends to be a little bit higher in the party Congress year than the rest of the years. Inflation definitely is lower in the year the party convened its Congress than other years. And unemployment is lower. So here we seem to find some supporting evidence of the prediction by the political business cycle theory under the classic model.
Can I have another clarifying
Sure,
question? I'm
sure.
sorry,
No.
but you know, the political business cycle literature indicates that usually somewhere people argue about whether it's 6 months before, 9 months before. So this date is the year of the Congress. What time of the year does the Congress meet? So is that, are we catching the lead up to it or the post?
Well, there are two questions here, actually. One is the exact time, day, month, year in which the party convenes its Congress. The other is the lead time or lagging time. I believe it's in the summer. I do that from China, Nancy. Is that in the summer, June, July?
Probably
The party Congress?
have some little meeting, but finally they have
Yes, finally, well, I mean, the first and major, then you have the sub-sessions, but
summer or October.
October, okay, October, so take October. Then with respect to lead time and lag time, that was translated in the following table. So,
Okay.
and
You're,
yeah, this is the year before the Congress and the Congress year. And then the same, we can find the same pattern holds. Inflation is higher at the beginning of the party Congress year than the rest of the year. And unemployment is lower at the beginning of party Congress year than the other years. And the next table is year after the Congress and the Congress year. And the same pattern holds. Unemployment lower and inflation lower. And for GDP is the difference is minimal. And then finally is pre the Congress year, the post Congress year, and the Congress year. And the pattern is the same. So here we have some initial evidence that inflation, unemployment rate, to some degree, GDP growth tend to respond to the timing of the Congress year. Do we have evidence that we can say for certain that the party manipulates the economy to create an auspicious political and economic environment with low unemployment, low inflation? Or it's a purpose to create stability so that the long-term economic growth can be sustained? I guess there's no direct evidence to either of those two questions. The first question would refer to the rationale of politicians remaining in office. The second will be a national agenda, pointing to the long-term stability and growth. So I leave that question to historians. But I do hope that you will pick up some of those data, which I will share with you free. And more importantly, the subject, because you really can extend the subject by using some very advanced econometric techniques, time series causality, to have better results and stronger evidence one way or the other. I'll take any questions from you.
When you speak of policy adjustments, more concretely, how in a period of governmental transition, what kind of policy levers would be used here? I mean, clearly the government through the Bank of China can affect the monetary supply rapidly.
Yeah.
But what other sorts of policy levers might be used?
Oh, there are a multitude of policy levers that the government can use. The government can have a policy on the purchase of houses, the taxes on the use of gasoline. Just for example, and in China, the government makes policies with more freedom than the governments in other countries. And the policy can be carried out with a lot of certainty than other countries.
Some policies.
Some policies.
You
So
see,
you did use approval from,
is there a pattern to this, or is this kind of ad hoc, depending on
pattern on what?
of particular policies invoked?
Both. It can be a pattern, it can be ad hoc. It's ad hoc because policy was made in response to the economic reality. For instance, right now my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a overheated housing market in China. And the government had to do something. So it issued the policies that would decrease incentive to the people who speculated on houses. So you could say, okay, that's ad hoc. But there's a pattern. The pattern is whenever inflation increased significantly, the government would do something. So that's the pattern. When unemployment rose, the government would try to do something because government does consider its legitimacy rooted and residing in keeping people happy economically.
I wanted to follow on Rudy's question, just with the comment for the students who are looking